Hi, and welcome to the October free webinar. My goodness, it's October already, and this is another Ask Me Anything About Money and Mindset. I've had a few people who couldn't actually attend, so I've been gathering questions, and so I will actually go through some content and then open up for any other questions anyone has. But for now, we'll just get stuck into it. So, a little bit about me. My name is Alpha, and I help women business owners primarily connect their money mindset and improve how that works on a regular basis with their business and personal finances. It's important to connect those two because your business supports your personal life and understanding how to manage money in both of those areas. Because the other financial professionals don't actually, it's not their job to help you manage your cash flow. They can provide reports and things like that, but how you actually make decisions about what to spend or not spend your cash on, it's not their job to do that. So I help empower you in that way to understand and see what's going on, so you can actually reach the lifestyle you want and have the impact that you want in your business and your life. So that's a bit about me. My background is as a tax accountant. I started out over 20 years ago, and I worked in corporate tax accounting for a fair while, and then I moved into management consulting and helped build financial models for corporates, and then I started on my own money journey, which is what kind of kickstarted all this. I had a financial planner who let's just say it didn't really work out for me because I ended up paying a lot in fees. I never got the information that I wanted. And what I realized later on was that I was essentially outsourcing my money, which you can't really do completely. You can outsource some of it, but for the most part, you still have to know what's going on and where things are going. So this was me here as a bright-eyed, bushy-tail accounting grad. And this was me a few years ago with my little girl, and we went on a trip to Uluru. We did all the things. We did a helicopter ride. It's so nice to be able to have the experiences and to share things with her as well. And yeah, we get to do all sorts of things. She's been to so many countries and done so many things. It's wonderful. So let's get stuck into it. So I'm going to talk a bit about money mindset and systems because to me that's the crux of everything. Understanding what blocks your mind is putting up to prevent you from doing the things you want to do, and then also systemizing your money so that you actually don't have to spend a whole lot of time and effort and brain power on it. We often complicate things quite a lot as humans, and money is no different. It's also the jargon that gets thrown at us and all these things we're told we have to do or should do. It actually can be really, really simple. And once you figure out what it is that you want to do and how you like to do it, you set up a system to suit that, and then you just run it. And then you have projections to help you figure out how much money you need, and then the system just keeps going. And it can actually be pretty mundane after that, but it's exciting because you see the financial momentum that builds and the opportunities and the choices that you have as a result of having money. So I'm then going to talk about some common money questions that I get and some of the questions that have come through as well. And then I will open up for some Q&A, live Q&A that is. All right, so we talk about a relationship we have with money. We don't tend to often think about it in relation to having a relationship, but it's something that's so core and close to us. We think about we have relationships with ourselves. We have a relationship with our parents, with our partners, with our children, with our friends, with our colleagues, with our neighbors. There's so many different relationships that we have. And they're all relationships with people that like actually influence our life. Money influences our life on a pretty regular basis. If not daily, it will definitely be impacting you on a weekly basis. And so it's something that we really need to be aware of and work on. And so there's a continuum with everything. We know happy and sad, but we're not always completely happy or completely sad. We'll often be somewhere in the middle. So there is a polarity on each end, and there's a continuum between that polarity. So the same thing goes for our relationships in general, but particularly I'm talking today about money. So what I see a lot is what's here on the purple side, and we're trying to get to is move closer to that green side. And it's not to say that we're always going to be one camp or the other, somewhere in the middle, but hopefully closer towards the green. So I see a lot of overwhelm, and overwhelm is like the antithesis then of confidence. If we don't feel confident, we feel overwhelmed. And quite often we feel overwhelmed because we don't know the magnitude of the issue that we're facing. We don't actually know how much money do I even need to thrive? How much money do I need in retirement? When do I want the amount of money that I think I will need in order to do the things I want to do? Like there's so much that's unknown, and just the lack of clarity creates a bigger deal. So there's that level of anxiety. Our brains start to scenario, like worst case scenarios. That's generally how they work, because our brains are about surviving. So we're trying to look for all of the dangers that could impact us and hurt us. And so our brain just goes into overdrive. We're trying to create clarity about that so we can reduce the size of the overwhelm and head us in the direction of confidence and the clarity that goes with that. Procrastination is another one, again linked to clarity or lack thereof. If we're not sure about what to do, we just kind of fuddle around. It's like, okay, well, I'm not really clear on what to do. So, oh, wow, it's dirty in the fridge. I'm going to do that. Or you'll find so many other things to do instead of taking the action that you need to take, because you don't know what to do. You don't know what action to take. And the same thing happens with money all the time. I see they're like, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to do nothing. It's a little bit like, oh, I don't know where to go on holiday. If you don't know where to go, you're not going anywhere. So you need that clarity of direction in order to actually take action and stop procrastinating. And the same thing goes with decision. If you don't know what information you've got and what you need to do, and you're not confident about the direction that you're taking and the action that you're taking, then you won't make any decisions. So there'll be this indecision, which then leads to more procrastination, which then builds up to overwhelm. So it all just compounds on itself. And so then we have a fear of failure as a result that will also hold us back. There might be self-fulfilling prophecies. You might go, oh, I'm just not good with money. And so you've made some poor decisions, which has reinforced the beliefs you have, which we'll talk about shortly. And so that fear of failure and losing money and making the wrong decision stops us from doing something and makes us feel overwhelmed. Do you see how this is linking together? And so then we end up with an intense frustration as a result, taking us away from that peace and that happiness, what we ultimately want. And happiness is different for everybody. And peace feels differently to everyone. It even feels different if you think about peace, just imagine it quickly. Where in the body are you feeling it? Are you feeling it here? Are you feeling it here? Are you feeling it in your heart? Are you feeling it in your gut? Where, or in your sacral, or where are you feeling it? So it's different for everybody. And so because we're feeling frustrated, we, are so afraid to fail, so we don't make any decisions, so we don't do anything, and then we feel overwhelmed, and then that gets perpetuated by that frustration again. So there's just this loop that keeps happening, and this cycle keeps us stuck on that purple side, instead of helping us become clear to make decisions, to understand the lifestyle we want, understand our values, understand just the basics of money management, putting in a system, and actually being able to learn about who we are and who we want to be with money, so that we can feel happier and more peaceful. So here are some common money questions that I get. Why can't I make more money? Now, this can come about whether you're employed or if you have a business. There seems to be this mindset around, oh, I have a limit. I often hear this, oh, I can't quite get into the six figures. I just, no matter how hard I try, I never seem to be able to, break even, or I never seem to be able to, there's all this, and we keep telling ourselves that. And the more we tell ourselves that, the more real it feels. And so it will be real. So it ends up being this self-fulfilling prophecy again of what we tell ourselves actually manifests. And I realize there's so much about manifestation and law of attraction and all of that. And unless we understand it fundamentally, it's just words and jargon, and we try. Rather than believing something so much before it's real, so that it feels real and it will become real. And to be honest, that feels better anyway. It feels so much nicer. Feels so much nicer than actually feeling the opposite. So I would choose the part that feels better, even if it's not real yet. I would like it to be real, so it feels real, and therefore it will become real. It might not become real in the time frame that we actually want, but it will get there. And so how can I keep more of the money I make? Now, this is knowledge. When people are saying, oh, I'm making this money, but it just goes out as quickly as it comes in, and my bank account, my accountant's telling me I'm making a profit, but I don't see it in my bank account. That is basic money management. And so this is something we aren't taught, and this is why I do this. So I spent so many years working with clients when I was an accountant, and I saw this problem again and again and again. And partly it was because they just didn't want to know. They were outsourcing the money part, which was essentially just compliance, because that's what the accountants are there to do. Primarily is compliance and maybe some strategy work and some structuring, but daily management of your money, that's not their job. Even a financial planner can't do that. They will help with overarching plans for the future, retirement, investing, all of that, but they're not there to help you with the day-to-day understanding of, well, what's the purpose of your money? Like, what do you want it for? Well, who do I ask? So that's where I come in, and that's why I help you figure out what that actually is and how to keep it. You've got to know where it's going first. So understanding where your money is, what it's doing, what the purpose of each dollar is really, really important. The visibility is key. It's a little bit like anytime you want to make a change in your life, you've got to have the awareness first. How can I budget better? That is linked to that second question. So budgeting, I know it sounds like this horrible hard thing that nobody likes to do. Ultimately, it's just knowing what's coming in and what's going out. You know, if you don't have a feel for where your money's coming from and you don't know where your money's going, then you need to start to shine a light on it. The setup can be a bit labor intensive because you need to, although I've been harnessing AI quite a bit for this, and it actually makes that initial setup quite a lot easier because you need to categorize data, and who better to do that than a bot? So you can get that part set up, and then you can start to go, okay, well, here's what I want to achieve, and here is what I want my money to do. And you can set it up to do that. I know it sounds really simple, and it is. Not always easy because sometimes there are hard decisions to make and there's life choices to make and some sacrifices. And I'm not talking about getting ready a daily coffee. That's like small fry. I'm talking about bigger decisions about, do you want to add into your super or do you want to invest? Do you want to go on a holiday every 3 years or every 2? Like more fundamental, bigger, financial decisions. Can I pay off my mortgage and invest? Absolutely. And if you're not doing that, you are not going to build wealth. You absolutely must be doing things in parallel. You cannot just stick to one path and focus only on that for your entire life. You've got to figure out how you do it. And you've also got to look at what you're investing in, how much, and also the rate of return based on what you're paying on your mortgage interest rate, and what kind of rate of return you're getting to be able to make some of those decisions. But you absolutely must be doing both. How do I save for my kids? This is an interesting one. You could just do it. That's the simplest, is just put money aside in a bank account. That's the simplest. Create a bank account for each of your kids and just put money in there. And then, or you can just put money into one account and then depending how many children, you just divvy it up between them. Depends again on your family's income and tax situation as to whether or not you need to do anything more complex than that. I personally have an investment fund for my daughter, so it's sitting inside a trust structure, which is a simple one. I didn't actually have to do a proper full trust deed. It's a pre-existing structure that already exists in Australia, and the tax is capped at 30%. Because in our family, we needed that tax advantage. But if you don't have to worry about that, you can just put it into a bank account, a high interest yielding bank account, I might add. But there's just the discipline and the consistency of putting money in there. So it can literally be that simple. If it needs to be more complex, then you may need to look at other vehicles. You may need to ask an accountant or a lawyer if you need to set up a trust, but accountants can help you with that as well. So it really depends, and it depends also on the complexity of your family situation. If it's a blended family and you want to try and protect some of the assets and make sure they're earmarked for certain things, then you may actually need to get someone involved with that. But at the very least, just start putting money in a bank account, a high interest yielding bank account. How do self-managed superannuation funds work? So this is particular to Australia. So I will be open right now. I'm not a big fan of self-managed super funds for the average person because they take a lot of money to set up. They cost in compliance. There's a lot of risk involved, and all of the investment decisions are entirely on you to make. All the documentation to submit is all on you. You can get people to help you, but then of course you're going to pay for that. So it can cost you a lot of money to actually get it all set up. Again, it depends on your needs and why you actually want it, and what you're prepared to pay in order to get it. So there's positives and negatives, but again, like a lot of these answers, it depends on your situation, but just have to make sure that you go in with your eyes wide open. I've had too many people come to me and they're like, oh, I've got all this complex stuff. I really don't understand it. I just want to simplify it. It's like, well, if you didn't understand it, why did you set it up in the first place? Which, 2020 hindsight is a wonderful thing. And we've all done things that we probably wish we hadn't. But just really make sure that if you're going to invest in anything, you're going to set anything up, understand how it works. And if the person that you're setting it up with can't explain it to you, find somebody else to explain it, because you need to understand it. So here's what it was an interesting exercise. I actually did this. I actually prepared this when I was delivering a masterclass for a group that I run, and I thought, oh, I'm just curious, how did money really come about? I mean, I knew about bartering, but then I was like, well, how did we even get like how did bartering originate, and then how did we get to money, and then banks, and then all of the other steps in between. And so it's really interesting. So if you're not familiar with bartering, because it's probably a bit of an older concept now, it's where people exchanged services or goods for services or services for goods. So people exchanged things or actions, but not actual money. So just as an example, when I was growing up, my father's side of the family is so he's Macedonian or Northern Macedonian, and so they used to do different families would do different things. Like some of them would make baklava, some would make some would make different foods, some would make wines and alcohols and all of that, and they would swap them. Be like, oh, I've made this and I would like that. So let's, and then the other person will be like, well, I want what you make. And you're like, okay, well, let's swap for it. So they don't actually pay each other. They just swap for the goods. So that's what bartering was. And there was still a concept called barter card. I don't know if it's actually still particularly big, but it was still possible for businesses to barter. I mean, I've done that in my business before as well, where somebody couldn't necessarily afford to pay. And so we bartered their service for my service. And it has to be comparable and you have to be happy with the transaction as well. So it's an important thing to have with the exchange, that there's polarity. So parity, sorry, not polarity, parity. So then comes money. So money actually originated. So I found this quite interesting. It actually originated a long time ago. So 650, and I know BC is now like BCE, in Asia Minor, which is modern day Turkey. And it started as shells. So it's not even physical money, we'll get to that, is not what it used to be anyway. But it used to be shells or other natural items as well. And then it gradually became like gold coins when they discovered gold, or silver coins. And eventually it progressed into paper money and just metal coins. They're not, even though they look gold and silver, they're not actually made from gold and silver. And now it's digital. You can have digital coins and digital money. So money itself has also varied quite a bit. And then when people started amassing money where the actual money itself held value, they needed somewhere to store it that was safe. They couldn't just like kind of keep it in their house because people could steal it, or it could be lost, or there might be fires or floods and natural disasters where it could get lost as well. So they needed somewhere to store it that was safe. And thus started banks. But they started actually in religious temples as a way to store wealth, which is another thing in itself. And they later started to loan money as well. So originally it was there to store money that people had or owned. And then it became a place for lending money. People were like, oh, well, I want to be able to buy something. I don't want to save my entire life for it, or I can't save for it. So I need it now. For example, my house is burnt down. I need another house. I don't have the money to rebuild it. So they borrowed some money in order to do that, just as an example. The Roman Empire, and they took banking out of religion, so out of the temples, and in the late 1770s is when our modern concept of banking emerged. And it hasn't really changed a whole lot in many hundreds of years. It's probably due for a set shakeup. But anyway, so that's where banks came from. And then the managing of money is where that envelopes. I don't know, you might be too young or not to remember when people were paid in cash. They did a job, they were employed, they got their paycheck, either in cash or as an actual check, and then they used to divvy up their money into envelopes. This amount for groceries, this amount for tobacco, this amount for sweets for the kids, this amount. So they actually had dedicated envelopes, and that was their money management system back in the day. And managing it like that is actually a really good way of doing it, because you know exactly what you have. These days, with the digital overwhelm we now have, it's so difficult. There's so many different ways you can pay for things. There's watches, there's phones, I'm still pretty old school. I still use cash. And I'm teaching my daughter how to manage money. And it's really hard to do that unless it's tangible. So it's so easy these days to lose track of where your money is, which is why it's even more important to have a system. So when I took my daughter to the movies a few months back to see Inside Out 2. And if you've seen it, you'll understand this. If you haven't, I'll just briefly explain it. This is the control center of a 13-year-old girl's mind. There's joy, disgust, sadness, anger, anxiety, shyness, there was another word for it. Ennui, which is like boredom, and I forgot what this little character is, but they're all sitting there swirling around in their head. And as we develop as teenagers, we form a belief system. And so all of the actions and experiences that we have, we assign meanings to them, and all of these lines here are strings of our belief system, which I found the visual so awesome. But we have this overwhelm in our brains impacting how we believe we can manage money. Where we really need to end up is that we have joy and anxiety working together. You're not going to get rid of the emotions, and we don't want to invalidate the emotions because they're real and they're meaningful for us. But we want to know how to work them together so they work for our higher good rather than destroying things for us. So this is where the concept of mindset actually comes in, specifically money, but this can apply to anything in your life. So we have beliefs about who we are, then we have experiences that reinforce those beliefs, and then we have habits that are regular experiences or behaviors. I will go into this in a bit more detail here. So this is what I call the formation cycle, where we have our sense of self, our identity, who we believe we are, and then the beliefs that reinforce that sense of identity, like I'm a good person, or I'm shy, or I don't have a thinking, like I have a math brain, or I'm not good with words, or I'm not good with maths, or whatever the belief, like the belief is that supports that overarching sense of identity. And then the behaviors, they're the things that we do that are as a result of the beliefs. And then those regular behaviors and thoughts, the repeated ones, become our habits. And then they will all reinforce each other. So we'll have experiences where it's like, oh yeah, I didn't expect anything different out of that. So yeah, that's what I thought would happen. Yeah, see, that's just who I am. Well, it is if you want it to be, but you get a choice in that. And unless there's something that happens to interrupt this pattern, this loop, it will keep going over and over and over. And these neural pathways will just keep getting deeper and deeper, like a highway. If you look at, lines on a sand, it'll just keep digging deeper and deeper into that sand. I think it's time to start breaking some of those, especially if they're not working for you. So this reinforcement loop will often get interrupted when there's some sort of trauma or some dramatic change in your life. So it could be an illness, a death, a relationship breakdown, or even the birth of a child. Like for me, having my daughter was a huge pattern interrupt. Like it just completely shook my identity, and I had to reestablish who I was. I mean, there were still fundamentals in my values and sort of certain basic belief systems that were there. So I still knew who I was as a person, but what was my purpose in the world? What did I want to do? What did I want to contribute? There's all these things that you start to question because you're now no longer just you. You're not even just you, and you spend your adolescence being very self-absorbed in you, and then you spend your 20s trying to figure out who you really are. And then depending whether in your 20s or your 30s, when you meet someone, then you've got to figure out who you are alongside somebody else who's got their sense of self that they're still trying to figure out. So you end up trying to impose it on each other. And then you get to maybe your end of your 30s and you have a kid, and then you're like, let's just blow it all up and let's see where all the chips fall. So you have to kind of go back and go, so who am I? Who am I as a person? I'm now a mother, as a partner, as a friend, as a daughter. Like there's so many different roles that we have. And we have to still establish who that person actually is. And so it's a really great loop interrupt. But you actually then need to be conscious of how you reestablish the cycle. And it takes conscious effort. And that's where mindset work comes in. And the first thing, like everything, clarity. If we're not clear on what we want and why we want it, it's really difficult to aim for it. It's a little bit like, going, I'm going to go on a holiday. Cool. What now? You're like, all right, well, where do you go to go on holidays? Let's go to the airport. Great. So we drive to the nearest airport and we just stand there and go, right. I should probably have done something else. Maybe figure out where I want to go. There's a whole lot of departures on that board. Which one am I going to go to? Oh, there's a lot there. And some are in winter, some are in summer, some are tropical, some are European, some are trekking. I'm going to kind of make a decision as to what type of holiday at least I want, because I also need to then figure out what kind of clothes do I need to bring? What kind of other stuff am I going to need? Am I going for a week? Am I going for a month? Like there's so many decisions to make, and that's just for a holiday. That's fun. Our lives also need an amount of planning. We tend to put so much planning into the trips we go on, the sports that we play, the TVs that we buy, but we put less thought into the vision that we have for our lives. because it seems too hard. We don't know what to do. So I have a process that I use, which is very sensory because we are multi-sensory beings to create that vision. But once you have that clarity of vision, you can then go, okay, well, that is like what I want. You don't have to be super duper specific, but you have to have at least an idea so that you can start to create some goals and go, okay, well, I want to make sure I want to retire when I'm 60, for example. And that's not to say that these things can't change, but you need somewhere to start. And like, okay, if that's the goal, then I need to create a plan working backwards. And then because there's probably way too many things on that list that I could do right in the now, I need to prioritize that plan. So it's really important to be clear. And when it comes to your money, it helps you really laser focus on exactly what you're doing and give every single dollar or euro or yen, whatever currency that you earn, a purpose. It will go somewhere specific because you know why it needs to go there, because you have a vision, and that will keep you going when things get messy, because they always will. So investing, this is another area that I get a lot of questions about, and I did a webinar, I think it might have been the last time on this, and yeah, lots of questions, because we don't get taught about how to invest and the different ways to invest. And anybody who talks about it usually overcomplicates it or has an agenda of some sort. So there's different ways to invest. Superannuation or a retirement fund, if you have either of those, you're already an investor. You can do micro investing, which has opened up the ability to invest exponentially. Teenagers can now start investing. I really wish it had been around when I was a teenager. Would have been so much further ahead than I am. Property, invest in property. You can do that through commercial property or residential. And you can either invest like in a individual property, or you can buy into a pooled fund or a unit trust. There's different ways to even invest in property that don't have to be hugely expensive or hugely full of responsibility and costs. Shares in a company, shares and stocks, same thing. You buy just literally a piece of a company, but you have to pick that one company, and that in itself is can be there's a process for that. So we'll get to that. You can buy bundles of assets. So you can buy what they call a managed fund, or if you've heard of ETFs, exchange traded funds. They're just where they've taken a managed fund and they've created slices and they've turned them into like a share of a fund. So an ETF is basically a share in a managed fund in a way. And you're buying a whole lot of different assets of whatever is included in that particular ETF. Some might be infrastructure, like railways, roads, companies who build roads and railways and all sorts of things. They might be ones that are eco-friendly. So you can actually invest in companies that are researching and doing solar panels and wind farming and biodiverse, marine type things, biomedical, whatever it happens to be. Less able to get into those as individuals, but still they exist. You can buy pieces of the biggest companies in the world. If you never thought you'd be able to buy Apple or Microsoft in an ETF, you can, because you're buying bits and your money is pooled with other investors. Foreign exchange, you can actually, I shouldn't use the word bet, but you can forecast whether or not foreign exchange is going to go up and down, and you buy for which direction you think will go, and you make money on the gap. Digital assets, so cryptocurrencies, non-fungible tokens. Oh my goodness. You can buy a pixel of a painting, an electronic painting. That's, yeah, to be honest, I don't pretend to understand much about NFTs. Even crypto, I find it's not actually even considered a formal asset under the Australian Stock Exchange, but it's there. So that is still a potential way to invest. And then there's other things like gold. You can buy gold bullion. You can actually physically buy gold bullion. You can buy silver bullion. You can buy commodities, like you can buy into iron ore and nickel mines, and you can buy art and antiquities. So there's so many different ways that you can invest. So long as you understand it, I would say go for it, but you have to be able to understand it. Saving versus investing. So this is another thing too. So the impact of compounding is huge. So if we look at over a 10-year period, these are both over 10-year horizons. Saving generally, I mean, at the moment you can even get 5% in Australia, but let's just say 4%. Your money on savings is always going to be volatile and linked to what interest rates are doing. But let's just say that you're saving, $100 a month for 10 years, and you've got a 4% per annum return. You're going to end up with about $15,000 at the end of 10 years. If you invest the same amount, and there's still investing fees in there, and it's an 8%, so double the return, you're going to end up with just over $17,000. So there's risk involved there as well, but you get more money at the end of it. So this is where you have to be able to so if you can save as well as invest as well as pay off your mortgage, depending on, and if your savings can actually offset your mortgage, so much the better. You can, there's multiple ways of being able to do it. I'll just go a little bit more into the self-managed super fund because, like I said, I get this question quite a lot, and a question that came for today as well. So the pro and cons. So the pros is it gives you choice and flexibility of the assets you put inside the super fund. So you can add in whatever assets, things that commercial funds can't. So you can add in residential property if you want to, like a single residential property, which you can't do inside a regular super fund or the industry funds that exist. They could be more tax efficient. Again, this really depends on your situation. You need to have to chat to a knowledgeable accountant about this, and they don't all specialize in SMS, like in self-managed super funds. The downside is they are quite expensive to set up, and there are fees to maintain them. If you maintain it yourself, there are still some fees, and you could pay someone else to help you manage it, which makes it even more expensive. You are fully responsible for absolutely everything, and it's not a simplistic process. So there's compliance, there's investment returns that you have to lodge, and if you pay someone to help you with that, again, the cost is going to be up there. So it has to be really worth it. You have to have quite a lot of money in there for it to make it worth it. And you'll likely need to pay professionals for help because that level of complexity, unless you're going to be a specialist in this area, or you already are, I would caution against going down that path until you understand it. Systems. Oh, I know it doesn't sound exciting. For me, it is, because they enable you to do so many things so much easier and free up brain power. So what are they? So systems are a set of repetitive processes that aim to achieve something in particular, and they help you run your business and your life more efficiently. So that's really all they are. They're not anything overly complex, and they don't have to be. You can have complex systems depending on what your life is like, what your business and your life is like. And why you have them is they give you a level of consistency. And to be honest, when it comes to money, discipline and consistency, they sound boring, but that's what's going to make the difference for you in your life. So they give you consistency and clarity, and they also give you the visibility of what's going on so that you can make better decisions, so that you can grow and scale. You can have systems to help you with generating leads for your business, for launching products and services. They can help you with your marketing, and they also can help you with your operations and payroll. And these days, AI can be built into your systems to make it even simpler as well. So software is the most common way. So if you think of an accounting software, like whether you've got MYOB or Xero or QuickBooks, all those sorts of things, there's task management software out there, so many. I mean, I alone use Trello and Notion, but then there's Asana and Slack, and there's lots of other ones out there. And they can help you basically manage your life. So I use Trello to do like specific project management. So I have a couple of things, and I can share it with other people as well. And then I use Notion to just basically store a whole lot of stuff in my business and try and categorize things. And you can automate a lot of these things as well in your system. So if you want to save automatically or invest automatically, you can get reminders of things. Systems really help lighten the mental load that goes with business and life admin. So who's doing this? So the processes are often in your head. So the only way you're ever going to scale is if you bring on team to a certain extent, and you can only really bring on team effectively if you've got systems in place. There's no use you giving verbal diarrhea to a team member and going, yeah, go off and, be productive. You have to write things down. Give them checklists, give them processes. And if you want things done a certain way, think of your business a bit like a franchise, where you have to be very clear on every single task that needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and how it needs to happen. And then because you have them documented, you can look for improvements as well. You can go, oh, wow, there's actually a better way to do this. If I just, you make some little changes here and there and off you go. But unless you see it, it's hard to do anything about it. And then look, what a lot of these things do, the visibility gives you a better chance to make decisions. So streamlining, so systems can be a little bit overwhelming. Like I literally was doing some paperwork earlier and looking at, I have a list of all of the things that I subscribe to. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, do I really need that many apps and that many systems? unless they're absolutely clear what you need them for, you can streamline some. Like I do that with video editing. Everyone, somebody suggests, oh, this is great for doing this and this is great for doing that. I'm like, yeah, but do I really need 3 different apps to edit a video? I don't need them to be that fancy. I can just have one software. I know how it works. I'm comfortable with it. I'm just going to use that one. It's also cheaper then as well. So look at what you're using your systems for. Are you using it to capacity? Is there another system that does it better? Can you consolidate? Like the reason I chose my website software is because it consolidated about 3 or 4 different other systems that I had to do separately in the one. So it was cheaper and easier and simpler. So I was like, yeah, no brainer. So yes, reducing it also reduces the mental load as well, because then there's less things that you've got to log into and keep track of. How many bank accounts do you have? You consider streamlining them. If you have like 5 in your business and 5 in your personal, because it helps organize the money, that's okay. And you can have them all linked under a single like parent account. Then that makes it easier as well. And for your personal life, you can have them underneath your home loan so that what's in there gets offset, but you can still have it split out so that you know what it's for. So it creates a little bit of an organized system. So, and all of it has to make sure that it's linked to your lifestyle vision and how much profit you have and where you want things to go for saving, investing, and wealth creation. That's really key to make sure that your systems are streamlined enough to get you to the goal that you want to achieve. So that was the prepared part of today. So I'm going to stop there and open up for any other questions. If you'd like more help, oh goodness me, is I do offer a program called Money Essentials for Business Owners. And so this is, and I think I have, if I'm still recording, yes. So it's a program I run live. Actually, oopsie, just finished the current round. I'll be launching again in another few months. So it's designed to help you, show you how to do all of this. So everything I've gone through pretty much today, focus more on for business owners, is to show you how to do it, give you the tools, give you the template, show you how to customize the template, and give you all the things that you need in order to feel empowered to actually get where you want to go. There's clarity, there's mindset, and there's systems in there as well. So it gives you the whole package end to end. And there's one-off payment, or there's a payment plan in there as well. So if you want to go onto the wait list, go to moneyessentialsbusiness.com, and then you'll find out when it's launching again. So that's pretty much it for the main part. I will actually now stop the recording and allow any other live questions.